Go explore the world, see something else, understand that there's something other than what you see.
I do think there's a mending because more people are traveling. I do think
Yes.
there's a mending because we're getting to know one another because of the open access of social media.
If the Black physician leave, if the Black professors are leaving, what happens to the remnant Blacks that continue in America?
But then if too many of us show up, then it becomes a problem. Because why?
I wasn't
Get
going to go there, Dr.
exposed.
Trista.
You go to the forts, or you go to, they call them castles. Those aren't castles. Those are crime scenes. When you go to the dungeons, right? They call them castles, but those are crime scenes.
So now you have the people of the global majority that can potentially come together more because we have much more in common.
And so these are ancient places, man.
So,
You know,
yes.
I mean, let's not talk about Asia. Let's not talk about Africa. Let's not talk about India.
We
Right.
can dominate wherever we go.
There is no doubt that the world is changing and changing rapidly. With the current political social climate in the United States, the question remains, what will be the disposition of the Black diaspora? Will Black people face a mass exodus or displacement? And if so, what will be the response to the rise in the African diaspora populace in other nations? Will they be welcoming of spending, culture, and desire for racial advancements, especially in cultures that were predominantly mono-ethnic? Will the curiosity wane and be replaced by resentment? What is the future of African nations as they offer dual citizenship, yet at the same time make concerning political moves with known colonizers? We answer these critical questions and so much more with today's guest panelists, Drs. Opong and Job. We thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to do what? Click subscribe. As many may see, the new trend is the Black expats. And there's lots of countries where Black people are actually relocating to, and this has started for maybe the last few years. Now the question is, with all of the current changes in the American society and the political changes, and now socioeconomic changes, whether or not this will continue to be a trend, will we continue to see a large amount of African Americans or the Black diaspora leave the United States of America, especially those who are considered to be professionals. When we look at the studies that's done by the Pew Research Survey in 2023, about 75% of Black Americans have reported that they experienced some type of discrimination. 67% of Black adults say that the US political system has been designed to hold back the Black American. So the question is, will we see a mass exodus out of the United States of America, especially when we're referring to the professionals? I am so excited today. Listen, I'm so excited to have back on the couch Dr. Opong, and many of you may remember. If you don't, let me school you. No pun intended. He is an expert in Pan-African studies, as well as international economics, a filmmaker, an expert in critical media analysis, media studies, and gender studies. Dr. Opong, it's so good to have you back on the couch with us.
Thank you.
And of course, we had to bring her back because you know she gonna tell it like it is. Dr. Trisa is back on the couch. Listen, we are still rerunning that conversation we had on birth economics. Hasn't it come up a lot? There's been lots of conversation about birth economics. So, of course, when we're going to talk about another economic conversation, we have to bring you back on the couch. How are you doing, Dr. Trisa?
We're here.
Awesome. So let's just jump right into it because this is a hot topic, you guys. And a lot of Black Americans, actually the Black diaspora in America, have been leaving for the last few years. And some will say that kind of the American dream has never really been a dream for Black America. And so now you have individuals who are open to exploring other communities and other countries.
Hey friends, hey, I'm back with another video about the Adventures While Black First Sunday Brunch. Now, I've gotten so many questions from my videos, so I wanted to give you a little bit more of a detailed explanation And I did a few interviews so that you can see who all attends the brunch, because I know y'all got questions. Now, let's start with my girl, Teray. Teray, aka Soul Mama, is originally from Philly. Now, Teray is one of those OGs. She's been in Thailand for about 14 years, y'all. She is a jazz soul singer here in Thailand, and she's also a philanthropist. Her organization, IDC Care, is doing amazing things here in Bangkok, y'all, so make sure y'all tap in with her. Next up is my guy, Roland. Roland is a super OG here in Thailand. He's been living here for over 20 years. Roland is originally from Benin, West Africa, and he is an international lawyer, y'all. He knows his stuff. He's also a ghostwriter, and his award-winning book is out now. And now we've got my girls, Tamar and Jasmine. They both have been living in Thailand for about the same amount of time I have, a few months. Tamar is from Oklahoma, Houston, and Atlanta. And Jasmine is from Oakland, California. These are my girls and people that you will most likely see when you attend an Adventures While Black event. Love them.
Dr. Paul, what do you think about that trend, or what do you think is leading to that trend?
Yeah. First, I want to say thank you again for having me to be in the presence of two queens, two melanated queens at that, the real doctors on this call. Just want to say thank you again. This is not new. What we're seeing is not new. What we're seeing is just a trend of the socials because of the rise of users on TikTok and Instagram. More people are said to have traveled, especially Black folks, but this is something that has been happening. But the documentation of people leaving the United States is a real thing, I think primarily because of the year of the return, which happened in 2019, and the gateway to the continent of Africa, which is Ghana. More people are making their way to Africa through Ghana and just throughout. Rwanda is one of the places that people are going, but make no mistake about it, Thailand is at the top of that list. I was speaking with you earlier on Instagram, and I see a few different places, top 5, top 10, top 20 places. But the majority of people are making their way to places like Asia and various places, such as
Portugal,
Japan.
I saw, has been on the top of the list too, surprisingly.
Yep, it's up there. It's up there. And a lot of people are staying in the country, just going to country states. You know, people are looking for a lot more peace and quiet in the wake of, or should I say, post-COVID. And so that's what I've been seeing. Quite a few of my friends have left. A good friend of mine, her and her fiance went to the Philippines, and they've taken residence there. They've been there for 2 years. And so they plan to get married there, have children there, and build a family there and acquire property. So this is something that has been happening for some time. About 9 years ago, I know 5 people that have moved back to Ghana and just throughout. Takoradi is one of the places. Not everybody's going to Accra. And so it just depends on who you're talking to, but it is a rising trend, but it's been happening for, I'm going to say, maybe the past 20, 25 years.
That's interesting. So you're saying primarily because now we're on the social and the media, we're able to really be more aware of a trend that was already happening. Are these countries doing anything in particular to attract Black Americans or the Black diaspora to return or to explore when it comes to other countries?
Great question. I mean, if you're talking about work, I mean, imagine, right? My wife and I, we just had our third. So if you're talking about maternity leave, not just for the woman, but for the man, we're talking about maternity leave for a year, 2 years, in some cases, Europe, right? 3 years, in order to feasibly raise a child and feasibly get on your feet. This is with bonuses, y'all. I also think that these countries don't have the type of tax that America has. When you look, throughout, I want to say maybe there's about 6 or maybe 7 different states that don't have a state tax, granted, but there you're not paying taxes at all. I think we were just kind of having a conversation about just yesterday. The nation's leader passed a law where we have, there's a trade war happening, and you see what's happening with tariffs, especially, with Canada. Justin Trudeau and our nation's leader are going back and forth on a few different things. And so this reciprocity of taxes that's happening on an economic scale is going to affect us for generations to come, not just now. So if you have a sitting president now compared to um, a leader in Cuba by the way, healthcare, right? So we're talking about leave and having maternity leave and having just all these different type of benefits. The healthcare system tends to be second to none. If you go to a place like Germany, where people are going, rest his soul, Kobe Bryant went there, and as much money as he has, he still went to Germany to go get I want to say it was knee surgery, and he had a few different things happening with his legs. People are going there for different types of dentist work. So, you know, it benefits you more as a human being to to be an American citizen, but to be an expat. I last time you came to my house, Taska, we were talking about, was like, you know, Ghana is going to be home, you know, and that's something I've made my decision on. My parents, most times you talk to, I want to say Ghanaians. I can't speak for all Africans, but
Right.
Ghanaians come here, they make a life, they have their kids, and they go back to take residence. And if they have worked for some type of federal, if they have worked within the federal aspect, and they have a very heavy pension. And so my Uncle Duadu, he's currently right now in Ghana. He worked for First Interstate Bank, and he also worked for the post office. So he gets, you know, a pretty nice pension. And when you compare the dollar over here to the dollar over there, you're 14, 15 bucks ahead. And so it benefits him more to have his family. His kids are grown. You know, he has a pretty, I mean, for the most part, he's considered rich, is what compared to being over here, he would be considered somewhere, I would say, lower middle class. And that means a lot now, because you go look at the price of eggs and the price of milk, you know, compared to the price of eggs or milk in a place like Ghana, you're winning.
The Earn Your Leisure team is very well known for their aptitude and financial freedom. Do you know that they're also working on a major housing development project in Ghana?
Introducing the Cascades, Accra's newest premium community. The Cascades is phase 1 of the Sambra City development located at School Junction, Boteman, or Trazaku Backgate. This 30-acre gated community is the first phase of a new city development spanning 500 acres and providing all the best amenities in urban living with no compromise on quality and amenities. Located within a stone's throw of the newly constructed All Africa Games Stadium and within a 10-minute drive from the Accra Mall, the Cascades is ideal for first home buyers, property investors, both local and abroad, and professionals looking for the perfect mix of great amenities, first-grade finishing, and premium services, all at the right price.
Dr. Trisa, what happened to the American dream? A lot of people came to America for this American dream. Dr. Opong mentioned some people had always the plan to return to their native countries, but a lot of people came to America with the idea of permanently settling here because of this American dream.
Well, it became the American nightmare because you are working like a dog, how many ever hours, and you can still barely get ahead. Now, that is not like universal and every single one is struggling, but a vast majority of people are. Whether you're first generation, sometimes, you know, you do the best that you can and you get that second generation in to do a little bit better. But a lot of the research is showing that it's starting to come kind of backwards, like when there's not enough progress being made in the generations that follow. And so it's no longer this kind of dream. It's become a nightmare. And if you have another option, why don't you take it? And this is what, as he says, okay, with Ghanaians, they consider going back home. I know for a lot of Caribbean people, that's the way that they do as well. They do all that they can here. They get as far as they can here. This might have given them some opportunities. But we no longer have the blinders on that this is all that there is and this is the best that there is. But this is a means to an end. The end being, I'm going to be able to live comfortably in my space, in a space that I've grown up in or where I'm comfortable, but I'm going to be able to live comfortably there, and this is the means to an end. I don't think that we're having as much of that dream of the, 2.5 kids and the white picket fence and you can't put the fence in. The fence is $30,000. Like, you don't have that like that. It doesn't feel like that. So,
and it's something you said is really interesting because even though there are people who may not be struggling, you are working harder than the dollar you're breaking in. And so even though you're not struggling, you're still like working in some cases 75 hours per week. So the quality of life is really diminished. And
And
so
that's
you're
especially
able to pay your bills. You may not
Mhm.
be living from check to check, whereas most Americans are living. I
Right.
think like 2/3 are living from check to check, but you're still struggling in terms of quality of life. You're not spending time with your family. You're constantly chronically fatigued. And there is still an effort to push the corporate culture in America. And that corporate culture means you work more. I saw something interesting recently. We're always kind of keeping an eye on the billionaires because we got to keep an eye on them. And Bill Gates recently made a comment that he thinks that there are certain, then this has always been predicted that would be certain industries that would become obsolete with the growth and the intensity of the growth of AI. One of those industries that has been targeted is, of course, healthcare, because where else would you not want humane care would be healthcare. So the irony of it all, of removing the humanity from healthcare, is really ironic. But this is the prediction that
Oh,
within 10 years, that doctors will become obsolete. So this too, fellow doctors on the couch, what does that make you think when you hear in 10 years that the prediction is teachers and doctors, by the way, would become obsolete?
it confirms the ideas that I think many of us already have in our heads. Automaton robots, bodies, mass amount of bodies to just use and destroy, and just have them be replenished, right? There's no investment in them beyond their physical and their physical use and their physical capability. There's no, and that's where the teachers being gone. That's it. We're not investing in anything physical, because you can learn basic how to push the buttons on the register, as opposed to trying to figure out what the change can be, right? Yeah, right. So we can get all of this done just automatically, and we don't have to have anyone that thinks anymore. We don't have to have anyone that will be a part of the uprising anymore. We can just have bodies that we can control and send them where we want, how we want, because of course we can't not have the children. We must bear the children, right? And we're not going to educate them. We're going to put them in a system that just moves it along, either to the prison so they become free labor, or we keep
That
them in
part.
other ways, right? And then
So
of
cheap
course, no,
labor.
we're not, right? We're not going to take care of them physically. They died. Just make sure you have a kid or two before you die, so we can just keep replenishing what's happening. Thinking, and as you said, cheap labor, it brings to mind the laws that were just recently passed in Florida for children, where they're now allowed to work overnight, and they're now
Yes.
allowed to work these longer hours. Yeah, migrant workers aren't there to do the work anymore, so now you're going to try to pull the kids in to do more of it. We're
Oh
having
my
the
gosh,
beginning
that
of
just
it.
made my stomach literally turn in knots. Literally turn in knots.
It's confirming the things that we feel like in the worst corners of our mind could potentially be. It's just kind of lining them up to be like, yeah, nope, you're not crazy. This is what the plan is. This is what's happening.
And this has always been the plan. Professor, they're saying your job is going to be gone in 10 years too.
And I just might be gone from America in 10 years to the point of this conversation.
That part.
Okay.
That part.
I think Dr. Trisa puts it in
Oh, you're like, do me the favor.
right. Yeah. Hey, y'all.
Why the attack on the intellectual? Why do you think the focus of physicians specifically and teachers? I find that very interesting.
Epistemicide, the killing of knowledge, the strategic annihilation of things that are known. This is called epistemicide, the banning of books, anti-DEI, the end of discourse in thought and varied perspectives. This is called epistemicide. Name a thing.
Yeah, because I mean, think about it. I think any thriving community or any thriving society is going to consist of uh, all of these things, right? A grocery store, a bank, the educational institution, whether that's elementary, middle school, high school, or higher education, and hospital. Uh, you're going to need some type of municipal structure in terms of the governing bodies to govern the people in terms of the stoplights, the roadways, parking, things like that. Uh, all those things have some type of tax to it. Something happens to me now, the paramedics come to pick me up. I'm taxed one way or another. I think the intellectual institution goes well with the medical institution because the medical institution is informed by the intellectual institution, right? The knowledge is still within the institution, and they go out into the field and operate on bodies, whether they're surgeons or mental health therapists.
I reversed jackpot from the US to Nigeria. Well, 6 weeks ago, I relocated from the US to Nigeria. I took a leave of absence from my job at Johns Hopkins, sold my house, sold my cars, packed my bags alongside my lovely wife and beautiful children, and moved after 25 years of living in the USA. I know at this point some of you may call me delusional or even crazy, but I'm neither. I'm just a man full of conviction. I am Dr. Julius Oni, Associate Professor of Orthopedic Surgery, and also the CEO at Expats Capital, a private equity multifamily real estate company. I happen to believe that Nigerian patients deserve great care too. As part of my mission, I have started Doc Medical Nigeria, which offers high-quality musculoskeletal care to the population. Part of my effort is to provide access to care so that people do not have to travel to access high-quality orthopedic surgery care. I am humbled to say that people are coming from near and far, near as Ghana and as far as the UK. There are many patients that otherwise would have traveled, but now have access to high-quality orthopedic surgery on ground. To learn more, give us a follow, and I'll continue to share the journey right on this platform.
I just think once you make those obsolete, everything else falls to the wayside.
Right.
The number one thing that people who are homeless struggle with is perhaps healthcare. And the number one thing that people who struggle with joblessness or better wage is the lack of a degree or the lack of a certification. And so the nation's leaders made it quite evident with the dismantling of the Department of Education, right? So we're starting there.
Right.
And also made it very evident by signing executive orders and policies to make sure, to ensure, which I kind of think is kind of impossible, but these things have already been dismantled and have been dispersed to other places that are not experted in order to handle student loans, grants, you name it, everything that goes into getting the FAFSA. So in order to become a medical professional, you must somehow have a loan, a grant, FAFSA to come through what? The intellectual institution. So they're one and the same. The intellectual institution is the medical institution. I don't think you can silo it, or you can't. I don't think that one is decentralized to the other. I do know, and so I know that Project 2025 for sure is a very clear attack on education.
Yes.
You cannot become a medical professional without an
education,
right? And then on top of that, you have to have state, just these different certifications. You guys know them better than me. You have to have state boards and different things to be certified in said state or whatever the case may be.
Yes.
Once the intellectual institution is dismantled, we won't need these anymore. So I believe the powers that be know this, and this has been set up systematically. And then two, there's been a rise of melanated people going for the state bar. There's been a rise of melanated people going into the medical field, saving lives, right? There's been a rise of that.
There's a meme that's been going viral that I think is so important. It says, tyrants view educated citizens as their greatest enemy. Slaveholders stop the enslaved from learning to read. Nazis burn books. Dictators censor media. That's why Trump is attacking education, science, museums, and the arts to prevent us from learning. It's fascism 101. I mean, there's no clearer case for it. And for all of the folks who are saying we're behind, we're only going to get more behind other nations. We're only going to be further dependent on the brains and the brilliance coming from other places because we don't have reading comprehension. We can't do math. People don't have an attention span. And that's only going to worsen when they're getting their news from clickbait and Joe Rogans of the world, and they're not able to get like deep, nuanced storytelling and talk about it with a professional who went to school to help, moderate these sorts of conversations. It's really scary.
A question was asked earlier to Dr. Trisa as far as the practices in the medical field. Well, I remember a book, Doc. I don't know if you've heard this book, Homo Deus. This gentleman gave a TED talk, and he also has a book, and it was talk about sentiency. Sentiency is important because you can get a robot to operate on a human being, but I think we've all here seen Grey's Anatomy, ER, the likes of such primetime dramas. Man, to make a split decision or to make a gut decision or to make a divine decision on whether to move an inch on the brain or go up can either save the life or here we have, somebody who can become a vegetable, perhaps worse. AI can't do that. I'm sorry.
Right.
I think we saw what happened with autonomous vehicles. And Doc, you talked about it when you were asked the question a little while ago, right? Autonomous vehicles, and all that Elon Musk went through within I want to say about 10 to maybe 12 years ago with the autonomous vehicles. He's still paying out lawsuits for that because how many people died with these with AI?
But that's not being talked about, the safety issues, and now their efforts to quiet the investigations. And to your point, I like the part that you brought up because I do believe there's an art to what we do. It's not just the intellectual, the learning or the repetitive skill set. There are situations where we utilize an art of our fields to make decisions that are unusual, uncommon. I do believe most clinicians will say that they feel called to the field, which implies that a lot of clinicians in general feel that there is a higher power that also leads and directs their care of others. So that is a relationship that cannot exist with a robot. A lot of us will say that, making a very hard call, a difficult call, or even receiving creative ideas and ingenious ideas on how to solve a problem that has not been addressed before is unique to a patient that doesn't follow the textbook, that creativity is an external source. And so removing that will definitely not improve the humanity of medicine. And it's not to say that medicine in the US is perfect. I know there are many groups who have suffered at the hands of the institutional racism that does exist, but that's not the medicine, that's the racism, right? The medicine in its pure form is intended to be a healing art. It is the racism that has stained or that has poisoned the delivery of healing to individuals. So it's going to be interesting to see what medicine looks like without humanity. The other thing, when you think about AI is programmed, it's receiving information, it's learning rapidly. What is the source of that learned information? If that learned information is still tainted, it's still stained, then the AI's logic is going to be based on its programming, on its learned information from the current database, which is oftentimes the web. Racism is still throughout the web. And so it's not going to at all improve the issues or the discriminatory problems that exist in medicine. It may actually amplify it. I saw that figure go up. And in terms of intellectualism, touching on the fact that a lot of people don't like that the recent stats, and this is not recent, by the way, but for some reason it's gaining momentum again, perhaps the current climate. But Black American women, Black women in general, I don't think it's specifically American women, Black women in general have the most degrees and are the most educated group in America. And not a lot of people like the fact that Black women also have been soaring in the entrepreneurial space. And these are ways in which you close the wealth gap. This is how you become decision makers. Black women have started to enter into the Fortune 500 boardrooms and e-suites, and people don't like that, right? Because now you become a major decision maker. And so perhaps all of these stats and changes and shifts have been the source of what is now the reality of Project 2025.
A little over a year ago, my family and I sold everything that we had to live abroad as digital nomads. Since making that decision, my family and I have lived abroad as digital nomads in countries like Portugal, Mexico, Greece, Albania, and Belize. And there's a few reasons why we would never move back to the United States. Number one, if that's not obvious, the politics. People abroad are genuinely concerned for the future of the US. Number two, the cost of childcare. Abroad, we have access to affordable childcare. Number three, the cost of living. Because we're digital nomads and we can make our money in US dollars, that stretches way further abroad than it does here. Back in Greece, we have a 2-bedroom, 2-bath home with a sea view and a hot tub for only $13.50 a month. We could never have that in the US. We've also been able to chip away at our debt way faster than we ever could if we had stayed here. Healthcare is also much more affordable abroad than it is here. Abroad, we have international health insurance, and we can get top quality care anywhere in the world and be fully covered. That includes things like dental, vision, pregnancy care, acupuncture, mental health, but also even cancer screenings. But the biggest reason, honestly, for me is safety. Safety for me as a Black woman, and also safety for my child. Abroad, as a Black woman, I just get to exist in peace. And I also get to send my child to school without the threat of gun violence.
So here's the other thing that we have to face. If the best of the best, right? So the best of the best are more likely to have the financial means or the courage to exit, right? We know that we have proven that our students do better when they see representation of a Black man professor in the classroom who's teaching them. It becomes, dreams get bigger. Ideas become more fluid when you are part of that underrepresented class. We know that statistically that Black babies survive to their birth, their first birth, when they're cared for by a Black pediatrician. We know that the care of Black people have been across the board, not specific just to individuals who are Black, but across the board, we give good care. And so the question is, if the Black physician leave, if the Black professors are leaving, what happens to the remnant Blacks that continue in America? What does their life look like?
Back to the same okey doke. And I know what I was going to say earlier now. With AI learning from what's on the web and them trying to change everything that is being put out there to erase information that's quite pertinent to history, it will be flawed. It would be wholly flawed. They're changing it in all aspects. They're removing women from the records in military service, and they just going all the way through. It's like, nope, they never did anything. She never did anything. He never did anything. So we know that those machines are going to be, whatever information they're using is going to be so highly flawed, it might as well just not even exist anyway.
Right. And perhaps that's part of why the effort is so rampant to rewrite history in order so that the learning of these systems is based on the revised history.
Right.
Yeah, Professor, what happens when you leave the classroom? What happens to the young Black boys that are there that are looking? And there was also recent data that came out that said that Black men are not going to college. That at HBCUs, the numbers have dropped significantly in the attendance of Black men in colleges. But there was a counter stats that said that Black men were looking at more trade schools, and the population attendance through trade schools has been higher.
Black males are graduating at a much lower rate than Black females.
And that's across all colleges.
Across all colleges, not just HBCUs. Right. And so this drop in the past decade has been seen more drastically. But the reality is this is not a Howard problem. This is not an HBCU problem. This is an American education problem.
So what happens to the Black kids that are looking for representation in the classroom if the representation leaves?
Another great question. So I agree with Dr. Trista. I mean, the erasure happens immediately. And to make America great again in the eyes of those who feel like America was great 60 years ago and beyond that point, I believe that right there is success by articulating the white man as the apex of what success looks like, you know, that's achieved. And so, but I do think there's a counter argument, not only to the stats that you gave, because I know those aren't your stats. My thing is I would like to compare a data set with another data set with another data set. You know, who and where does this data set come from? And is it articulated through the lens of looking at the healing or the success or the thriving of Black communities across America? And so the research that myself and Dr. Bush and those within the Pan-African Studies Department at Cal State LA have done, as well as those in the African American Studies Department at UCLA with the Black Male Institute with Tyrone Howard, says a little bit different. It says that
what y'all saying? School us.
Right. So it's saying that, so there's been a 10% increase in Black males going for higher education degrees in masters that are looking at STEM, and also doctorates and those that are going into law. It also says that Black men are thriving on Wall Street and in Silicon Valley. So on both coasts, right, you have Black men thriving in California and Black men thriving in New York, right, doing the work that needs to be done on the financial level and in tech, right? Two areas that have always been prominent primarily for white males. So I think they know, right? Folks know, but it's a very quiet thing that Black women have been running education. Black women have been running the medical field, right? I mean, what can't the Black women do? Life does not progress without the Black woman. I believe that what happens in the classroom is that you do see a dismal effect, but from PWIs, not from HBCUs of Black males. I do think that you see a rise in junior colleges since Obama passed an act that allows especially those within lower socioeconomic areas, South LA, South side of Chicago, places in Atlanta, where Black males are going to trade schools and whatnot, right? They may not have to get higher education degrees, but they're making more, right?
And they're dominating those fields.
And they're dominating the fields, and they're doing it quicker because once they leave, all they really need is a certification, perhaps an AA degree, and they're right in the field. They're practicing. So you have practitioners.
Which is brilliant because there's less cost to those degrees, right?
I would say so. Actually, I'm encouraging students not just to follow their heart, get the education, right? It may not look like a master's degree. It may not look like a PhD or an EDD or a PsyD. But the fact that you have an education, you get married, I think the thriving of what I teach in human development is the thriving of the Black family, right? And this is something that Amos Wilson talks about, and a lot of the great folks who speak in terms of economics for the Black family. That's what it's really about. I think holding a degree may be slightly antiquated because young people today are finding different ways to be entrepreneurs. And so the fact that they're leaving the classroom does not mean that they won't be successful.
Right. I completely agree with that. And I think it is deceptive to imply that that's the case. A lot of times people make the two equal and they're not. And the question is this part of what has made the white man feel threatened with the economic growth, with the closure of the wealth gap? Because there's also a lot more Black families who are more wise to real estate also, which is one of the primary ways of increasing wealth. So yeah, thank you for making that distinction. as individuals who are from other countries, the relationship between Black Americans and Africans have been one of sometimes contentions, and also the relationships with the West Indians, the Caribbean born with Black Americans, have not necessarily been the most peaceful. Are there efforts now to mend those relationships, especially since the year of the return? Do you see a mending of these relationships?
There's still argumentation there. There's a group of Black men, Earn Your Leisure, along with another Black man, and his name is Shaka Bars, and they
Yes.
come together to, I believe you also sent me a video of such. They've been building on this for a while, but since the year of the return. And Shaka Bars is one of those individuals who's about Black unity, Black love, Black healing.
Yes.
There's always, to me, from what I've seen, right? African people tend to dominate, or I feel like when it comes to Black people, we only think of Black Americans and African people. The first place that folks were taken, if you're talking about the transatlantic slave market, were the Caribbeans, and they were taken to Europe before they were brought here. Matter of fact, you came here. Why aren't we talking about our West Indian Caribbean people in terms of the power that they add, not just to various industries or various countries, but to the world? I just did, myself and Dr. Colleen Fighter, she's from Jamaica. We just published an article talking about the placement of melanated people, specifically West Indian and West African people in the classroom, and what that looks like, and how education, how the medical field, how families don't thrive, how those families don't thrive without those people specifically in the class because of what they bring based on their lived experience from Africa and from the West Indies.
Right.
So there is a mending happening. It just depends on where you're looking at. I think depending on what your feed feeds you on a Facebook or Instagram or a TikTok, because the news has never given this to us. But now the dominant force is based on an algorithm of those dominant forces within the algorithm is going to push out a certain type of subject matter, a certain type of argument, a certain type of podcast. And I don't think we really know what's going on unless we go and visit various places within the Caribbean, unless we go and visit various places within Africa to say so, because the natives there will tell you. And then the natives here, Black Americans, will also tell you. I have not yet visited the Caribbean, but based on my conversation with Dr. Fighter, I'm going to say you guys and other folks who are from the West Indies, I don't think there's ever been a fight. I think based on media studies, there's been a propagation of this falsehood of something that was made up a very long time ago, which has never been true, called Black on Black violence, Black on Black crime, Black on Black trauma. And when that's created, then, it's like Spider-Man pointing at Spider-Man, pointing at one another. And it's just like, well, who started this anyway? I don't think it exists. And I don't think it's a subject to even be had. However, your question, which is great, I think there's more love there than anything. Growing up here in Los Angeles, there's a dense population of Caribbeans and Ghanaians and Nigerians. And there's always been, oh, we're going to eat Jamaican food. Oh, my friend is, Devon, he's from Belize, or my other folks, who are from, And so I personally can speak for myself and say, I've never seen it. But I do know that the African booty scratcher thing has been there for some time. So as long as you had an accent, you were an African booty scratcher. Whether you were Black and sound like Damson Idris or Idris Elba, or whether you have an accent like Dr. Trisa here, who, you can hear the prominence with you, Dr. Carly Fighter. And I'm just like, when you hear that, it's just like, do you feel estranged or ostracized from your folks? There's a culture shock. I do think there's a mending because more people are traveling. I do think there's a mending because we're getting to know one another because of the open access of social media. And we see folks like you, Dr. Taska, with platforms like this, who are very considerate and very socially conscious and very culturally informed about not just Black people around the world, but all people around the world. And that we're not in this silo, and this is not a vacuum. and that we do need one another, regardless as to what race you may be. But to me, there's always been a unity of Black people. I've never really seen, I don't want to be ignorant and say I haven't seen it. It's been there, but I don't think it's been more prominent than the Black love than we're seeing now. So,
Right. I agree with that.
I mean, and so I feel like, especially as a filmmaker, we have seen this trope being pushed out of, and they made Black directors and Black writers do it. And this is why Issa Rae is the bomb. Issa Rae is also an African, right?
Yeah.
And so telling these authentic stories, especially about Black women, and that the Black woman is not angry is important. But they think the African woman is angry. They think the Caribbean woman is angry, right?
Yeah.
That's not true, right? And if she is angry, she got every right to be angry because a
Yeah, I
lot
was about to say, Caribbean women are angry, but it's righteous anger.
Thank
It
you.
is.
Yeah, it's righteous anger.
We still know
Yeah.
how to be very kind.
Yeah, we just speak our minds when we see injustices, and you know, we try
In
to
fact, I think that's
resolve.
your very nature. I think our first nature is to be kind, and I've never. First and foremost, all of them are fine. Let's just start there, okay? And then secondly, most if not all of them could cook, right? And
That
the
part
last thing,
too.
right? I'm on a line with two doctors. Most times when I see Caribbean women and especially Nigerian women, they're holding something. They're holding 2 degrees, 3 degrees, kids.
Nigerians, I believe, are the number one. They're the largest
Educated.
percentage of Black physicians in the U.S.
Where
Yeah.
can you find where can you find that? You know what I mean? And so yeah, so my love and big shout outs to my Caribbean, my West Indian women. It I know from what I've seen, and my mom will say it, Caribbean women have always been at the front. And as a Black boy, I've always seen Caribbean women in the same light that I've seen Black women in the same light that I've seen African women. To me, they've always been sisters. I've never seen that divide. But I have seen and witnessed the divide of the false discrimination that we're fighting. And I have seen the fighting, but it's never, to me, it's always been dwarfed by, I'm going to just say it right here. This is a testimony right here on the line. Y'all too. Like I've always seen this. And I've always seen the love that y'all extend to everybody else. And when I say everybody else, I'm talking about like us as a global Black society. I've always seen that.
Yeah. I will say I do know the older generations have not had the best experience, especially when they first migrated to the US. I have heard many shared experiences in which they have been belittled, talked down to because they were from the Caribbean by Black Americans. I don't, and it's interesting because as I hear these stories, it's always so foreign to me because my path and my experience have been the complete opposite. And I have such a diverse group of friends in terms of the Black diaspora. So it's an unusual story to hear, and it's unusual for them to hear my stories because their stories are dominated by experience that were not the best experience and not the best relationships, and they were made fun of and they were threatened with their immigration status. And they had to do jobs that were hardworking jobs, but competed with Black Americans who were also trying to make their way up, who felt, from their perspective, threatened by the West Indian or the immigrant Black who is more educated, because the educational systems in a lot of the other countries were a step ahead of the American education system.
And the British.
And the British, right? Exactly. So I think it really depends on which generation you're speaking to. I think our generation has had, thankfully, because of their hard work, a much better experience. But I definitely still to this day, I hear stories of just, and they're angry and they're still upset and they're still, because those stories are still very real to them. So I definitely would say I've been on the cusp of both transitions. And I think now, because we have such a more global culture, that people are much more informed and more understanding, so they understand why we eat certain things, Now what we eat is now being commercialized and people are making lots of money off of it, but people used to make fun of it. They used to make fun of the stuff that we eat, right? And so I think people are just becoming more informed, and as a result of being more educated, more informed, and more cultured, they're more welcoming. So I do think I have witnessed personally a transition, and hopefully that transition will continue. And shout out to the Brazil, the second largest population of Black in the world outside of African countries. Yeah. Dr. Trisa, what's your take on that transition?
I agree a lot, to your point, the older generations having had a different experience. But I also feel that that was their I'm going to say their
Yeah,
very
yeah.
successful plan to divide and conquer, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
keep us apart so we cannot unite and be the best that we can be. Like, and then now that it's definitely not working, they're continuing to make sure that we have that racist white versus black separation. We all right? We should be working together. No, they're making sure to reinforce that because all the other little nuances of, but you're different, don't work as well. So now you have the people of the global majority that can potentially come together more because we have much more in common, having immigrated some or being first generation. We have more similarities. We have in the things that we may eat, we may be just looking at it in different forms. We have more, and I don't want to say it like a thrive or a desire, because I don't want to act as if African Americans don't have a desire for progress or whatever.
Right.
But sometimes I think there is this brutal fight and this reminder of, I left there where I might not have had anything, and I cannot afford to not have anything here, right? There's
Yeah.
this fight for
Survival instinct.
survival that they may not have the same experience for. And I can only put it that way. And so there's so much more that we now have in common and we can come together and move forward with. And so that divide of, we are so bad just makes it more separating for us. It's like, oh shoot, if this part did not work, we have to try something
Right.
else. We have to go
Right.
back to that part. We knew that this part worked way back when. Let's reinstate that playbook because that playbook worked well. And like you said, you're getting more people traveling. I don't know what the statistics now say about, Americans traveling or living more than 50 miles outside of of where they were born. In the area where I live now, it's very interesting to me. And I love talking to my patients because it's going to be like, oh, are you local to this area? And they're like, yeah, I grew up the next town over. And I'm just like, okay. Some of them have been in the military and they've gone elsewhere and come back or whatever. But I always find it interesting. And the people that I vibe with the most are going to be the Europeans. The European women who are now living here. And we can talk and we can vibe on anything because we have that experience of coming from something else. They've seen something different. But I still like talking to all my patients. I talk too much sometimes, but I like talking to them because I like understanding where they're coming from. I like knowing what it is. But I realize that there's still always this kind of disconnect because for many of them, they have not left the state. They have not gone anywhere else. They don't get that much exposure. But and these are not the diasporic people that I'm talking about. Most of them are white. But when you see all these people and who are going to Dubai and all that other stuff, it makes my heart sing because I'm like, go explore the world, see something else, understand that there's something other than what you see here on this TV and the system. Understand that Africa is not, one country. Know that it's not
That part.
a bunch of people living in dirt
In
and
huts. Yeah.
like go explore, see, know, and understand for yourself so they can't keep telling you foolishness because they'll keep telling you foolishness. So
And, I'm
I love
glad
it.
that you brought that point up, Dr. Trista, because I do think also the exposure to the metropolis living in African countries has been a shocker to many people
Oh yeah.
because their image during our earlier years, I'm not
Oh
going to
yeah.
tell my age, was primarily the feed the world,
Yep.
the children image, right? And so
Yep.
a lot of people had no idea that Africa was industrialized and have some of the most creative industries and thriving in so many ways.
Tech
But to your point, you
innovation.
brought a thought to my attention, but you're right. Because the economic opportunities for the older generations were not as much, it did make them like crabs in a barrel, making them compete more for job opportunities. But to bring up one last point before we wrap up, so in Africa, primarily predominantly Black population, but people are relocating to countries like Portugal, which are known to be colonizers. Will Americans who relocate to certain countries that have known to be colonizers be shocked with the appearance of racism in those countries? Are they living in a utopic bubble that America is the only country that has this racism-like experience? Will there be any shock, any awakening when they relocate?
So I got asked this question, and I think the answer is pretty simple. What is it like being Black here in London, in the UK? Well, it's way better than being Black in the US right now, I will say that. Being Black in the United States was stressful. And here, I'm not disillusioned to the fact that there is still racism, but it just looks different. And the systems here are very different. So it's not in your face, but it's under the surface. I didn't come here thinking it was going to be some utopia, but it's way better than what I felt like I was dealing with in the US, especially right now.
Man, it depends on what they were exposed to while in America if they're going elsewhere. Because you can only be informed by what you were uninformed on. And you can only be uninformed based on what you were informed on. You know, you go to the forts or you go to, they call them castles. Those aren't castles. Those are crime scenes. When you go to the dungeons, right? They call them castles, but those are crime scenes. You go to a dungeon in Senegal, or you go to a dungeon in Portugal. You go to a dungeon in Burkina Faso. You go to a dungeon in Haiti. They all look the same. And so if you just live in LA, you're from LA, South LA or Gardena or Inland Empire, it's your first time traveling, you're not going to know this stuff is going to be foreign to you because the history books didn't give it to you. So when you go there, you won't know the difference between colonialism and imperialism and racism.
A few weeks ago, I brought you the story that the DRC is offering up access to its $20 trillion mineral wealth deposit to the United States in exchange for military protection. And now, I've got an update for you, a big one. U.S. officials have flown into Kinshasa, high-level meetings have taken place, and according to both governments, they are moving forward. Yes, this isn't speculation anymore. It is happening. A deal is in the works for the U.S. to step in to protect war-torn DRC in exchange for access to its minerals.
They will tell us, Thomas Sankara tried to do it like this, but where is he? He is dead. The Haitian president, he tried to do it like this. Where is he? He is dead. Gaddafi tried like this. Where is he? He is dead. These are the veiled statements made to us to instill fear. And then we also often see some young people trying to follow in the footsteps in a different way. You can hear them say, such a person ruled like this, he has the sepulcher. Such a person ruled like this, he is in prison. All this to try to scare us, to make us cowards. I think they haven't understood something. When we say the homeland or death, we shall overcome, it's not just a phrase, it has its full meaning. We are not afraid and we will never be afraid. We will continue our struggle. They have undoubtedly and surely scared numerous African heads of state. You often see, when we speak or when we have the opportunity to be in certain situations abroad, we often make statements to call on African heads of state to wake up, take care of our youth, to be able to initiate our real development.
You won't be able to tell them apart. The final thing I want to say is, if you do travel to these places, I mean, just the physical look of people and the roads and everything, you're just going to have a problem with it because people don't realize how good they have it in America, but how terrible it is in America. So, two sides of the same coin. The most impoverished people talk about poverty. The people over there actually have, but your outlook of poverty is based on, I like what you said, feed the world, feed the children of the world, donate to the child now, 10 cents can save them, is what they see when they see Africa. But the thing is like, and then Dr. Trisa, you're talking about, oh, yeah, I live in the nuts. Very industrialized. The best universities to go find in the Caribbean and in Africa, I kid you not. The best universities, perhaps the best primary schools. Go there and you see how food is made. You don't know how food is made over here. It all goes through this very tin, aluminum, metal-like vat factory. But over there, they'll put their hands in the food. They'll put their sweat in the food. You can taste the food, man. It's not. Let me say, it's not America, because what is America? It's a melting pot.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And America is not even an infant. America is still, still young.
Completely newborn.
Very new.
Mm-hmm.
And so these are ancient places, man. Let's not talk about Asia. Let's not talk about Africa. Let's not talk about India. These places are ancient. And all of those places help to industrialize what we see now is Europe. So we're talking about Portugal, man, right? Or Italy. We don't want to talk about how racist Italy is and how them and the French had perhaps the biggest hand behind the British in colonialism.
People keep asking me, are you excited to go back to Italy? No, I'm not. Being a Black woman in Italy is exhausting. You don't look American. So where's your family really from? Oh, you were born in America? Your parents were born in America? So you're Senegalese, right? You're from Senegal? Asian store owners following me around the store when I'm trying to shop for hair products. Standing out because I'm not Italian. So, the little things. Microaggression. That is what I'm not looking forward to going back to Italy.
And so when you go there, you're gonna say, "Oh, this is nice," and you have this very
fantasy.
And it's living inside of you. The truth is, you don't even know your own identity. So you're gonna call that. You go into Sistine Chapel, right, and you see Michelangelo. You're gonna say, "Oh, this is beautiful." Leonardo da Vinci. You're gonna say, "Oh, this is nice. This is lovely." But can you say the same thing about in that same place? You're going to go into a museum and there's stolen artifacts over there. And those artifacts have not been returned, and they're still at war right now as we speak to this day about returning the bones of a Black woman back to Africa. And they're still fighting over that. Returning the bones of the little Black boy that they took from Africa to understand the anatomical makeup of human beings and where they come from. And how they've taken all these artifacts. I mean, I think Ryan Coogler did an excellent job of writing and directing Black Panther the way he did, and the way part one starts with Michael B. Jordan in this place and saying, "You guys are thieves and you guys still up to no good. And you're defending your thievery." And so,
that was a great line, by the way. I remember that.
Remember, right?
Yeah, and to this day, they're still defending the ownership of these items, of these artifacts.
Yeah. I forget the name of the two white men. There's two white men. One of them said, we need to go into Africa and take it over because they don't know what to do with themselves. And there's another gentleman who said, well, no, it belongs to us. He was on one of those Piers Morgan type CNN shows saying,
yeah, I think we saw the same clip because that's what I was just thinking about. I was trying to remember his name.
These artifacts, who do they belong to? They belong to the museums where they are now.
Where do Africa's treasures belong? Now imagine this headline differently. Imagine if it said, where do Germany's treasures belong?
But if they were stolen, No, they were not stolen. It was looting, yes, but there were the looting of war was legal.
I don't get this distinction between looting and stealing.
No, it was stolen if you want, but in the 19th century, in the 18th century, in 17th century, during all the wars, art was stolen. So we must give back everything or nothing.
The courage to say we were wrong. The courage to say about art acquired illicitly, this is not ours.
And more of this, these works of art, when they were taken, if they were not taken, they would have disappeared, because many of artifacts, African artifacts, are made of wood, and wood it was not made to be kept, so it would have disappeared. They became works of art in museums because Europeans said it's art.
This position is paternalistic arrogance of the most stunning sort. It is also lacking in basic logic. Since when has the basis of ownership been taking good care of what is owned? Much of what we call African art are also documents that tell stories, that these are objects that are religious, spiritual, sacred.
And if you want to come back on this, why don't you come back 19th century, 17th century, 16th century? You cannot stop. You don't know where to stop.
Obviously, I don't think everything should be sent back to the countries from which they came. Not everything was stolen. But those things that are sacred, those things for whom people were killed, those things that have in them the stains of innocent blood should be returned.
How do we get African kids to see their own artifacts?
Yes, you can do this, in French museums and Africa, to organize exhibitions. Yes, it's okay to send them to Africa, but they must return to the French museums where they belong.
Europe has defined itself as a place of certain values: progress, liberty, fraternity, tolerance, individual rights, and most of all, the rule of law. A nation that believes in the rule of law cannot possibly be debating whether to return stolen goods. It just returns them. Europe should be what it claims to be. Live up to the ideals with which you define yourself.
Having what he calls a legitimate debate about what is his and what's theirs. And then finally, there are the Afrikaans. These are white people in South Africa talking about how
Make that clear. They are white people.
White people cannot survive in anything that has anything to do with the equator. I mean, formidably. I'm talking about the white women being able to have children, not being able to get skin cancer. So how's Africa yours? Like, I'm still trying to understand. And it's the same thing.
They're still claiming that land, that unused land, not even used land, unused land. That's a whole other conversation. Right. Because listen, but you're right. Just the ongoing history that exists and the ongoing effort by certain African nations now to push back to exit the French, for example, from their country. The still active efforts to colonize, including in our current country, the colonization spirit is still rampant and strong. Shout out to Greenland. So
in Canada.
And Canada, apparently, our 51st state. But yeah, you're right. And I think it's definitely a complicated history. I do believe to a certain extent, because of the lack of information, and I don't want to paint everyone with a broad stroke, but I do believe that there is a certain fantasy that exists about other nations that may be a little bit of a rude awakening when people do try to relocate, to realize the subtlety of the different types of racism that exists and colonizes perspective and attitudes and structures.
To add to that, I think it's a fantasy in both ways, right? Because for one, depending on the countries, and if the natives don't have a population of their own, it's fascinating. Ooh, Black people. So it's a fantasy for them to see us, and we're just like, ooh, it's lovely here. But then if too many of us show up, then it becomes a problem. Because why?
I wasn't going to go there, Dr. Trisa.
They're exposed to US media. And so now they have these images, right? Because unfortunately, we know that media has taken over. Everyone knows what happens on our televisions, right? So it's that I had a conversation with a
That's such a
patient
good
of
point.
mine, I think it was,
Mhm.
who might have been, I don't know, Finnish or whatever the case may be. And we talked about the fact that, we don't have the level of race. What she said is they don't have the level of racism there because we've never had to really live and integrate with people that were like different. Like everybody just, it was very monochromatic society.
Yeah.
So if they now start to have to deal with a not so monochromatic society, then what's going to happen over time when more and more people show up?
Because we're going to compete for jobs. We're going to compete for we're going to be the educated group because
And
that's
we
just what we
good.
do wherever we go.
We good.
We're going to be running things.
We good.
Right.
So it's going to be some competition because it's like, oh, well, it's a local, but we're good. So we know that we can dominate wherever we go. We can dominate wherever we go. So
that point. So it's going to be interesting to see as we no longer visit, but actually start to live in these countries and then want our rights and our ownership and our ability to progress and live, whether or not there's going to be pushback because economics do speak, right? So it really will be interesting to see whether people will welcome our talents and our gifts so that they can continue to thrive as a country, or will they see us as competition that also, and then decide that we also need to be oppressed.
We're the biggest spenders here in America.
Mm.
According to consumer reports, right? Annual consumer reports.
Yes, we're the biggest consumers. Yes.
What happens when we go to another country? Do they also welcome our dollars, irrespective of us being competition? Because Doc here said we good and we just good. And it's fact, we is good because we be good and we is good like that, right? But they also welcome our dollars, irrespective of the competition that we may bring to the various fields. What do you think, especially within your field, right? I mean, you're not just, you're not just a professional, you're a lifesaver. You're a lifesaver. You save lives. And so do they also welcome our dollars and how we consume and how we buy? Because we want it all, baby. We don't.
Right. It's going to be interesting because internationally we know there's a deficit of physicians. So will they also hop on the AI train and try to go in that direction, depending on which country you're talking about? If they're developing, if they're developing, they may see it as a plus to utilize these skill sets to then be able to expand on research and have this more symbiotic relationship. If they're a country that is looking to thrive with AI, we may not be as valued. In terms of our spending, it depends on what that country needs. If that country sees a value in our spending and our consumerism, then that's going to be valued. But if it's not well balanced by the job availability or the growth potential of that country, then it may be seen as a threat.
That's a good one. I know we got to end soon, and I don't want to. You got me going because I was like,
this is why I gotta get you on the listen, because you be having these mind cells, brain cells turning and churning. This is why the thinkers are a threat. This is why the intellectuals are seen as a threat. And there have been moments where intellectuals have been targeted because we're able to put two and two together and call a spade a spade. But
walk
on
like
that
a duck and it quack like a duck.
On that note, Dr. Opong, are people able to follow you, to find you, to find out what other words of wisdom and pearls you are dropping so that they can catch what you're putting down?
Yes.
Where can they find you?
Yes, thank you again. Dr. Charles Opong on all social media platforms.
Awesome. And your film platform?
Yeah. It's pretty much the same. Whatever I do on my personal platform is what I do professionally as well. We just wrapped a documentary for the All African Diaspora Educational Summit, which was headed by the Mends Foundation, the African American Male Development Network. We went to go shoot a documentary for the second time in Ghana, just showcasing the unity of Black people and African people and Caribbean people and melanated people, Asiatic people from all over. To center African-centered education, to talk about African-centered education. And so we did that in 2022 at the University of Cape Coast, and we did it in 2024 at the University of Ghana, both located in the country of Ghana on the continent. And so that documentary, we just released a little teaser for it.
I saw it. I was like, I'm ready. Give me the full film.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, the full film is going to be coming sometime this year. Distribution ain't no joke, especially as an independent filmmaker, let alone being Black males. The majority of us are Black male filmmakers on this squad. And so big shout out to my mentor, Lasana Hotep, and James Calhoun, who's the DP and the executive producer for it. So yeah, that's going to be coming hopefully to a streaming platform service near you soon. Very soon.
We are excited. Well, we will keep you posted because we would definitely want to be able to support you. Maybe we'll have you when it's released, do a quick promo for us, and we'd be happy to put it on our platform and let people know where they can go and how they can support the funding, because we got to fund our own. Things don't just magically happen. Y'all, we got to put our coins behind our words.
I say that again. He said it again. I'm gonna say
people coins behind these words. Listen.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Trisa, how can we follow you and find out all these? You be dropping bombs like boom. Letting the people know.
Trisa, man. Jeez.
TrisaJob.dpt on Instagram.
Amazing. Oh, listen, I feel like I have the appetizer, so I'm gonna need y'all to come back and give me the full course. Cause listen, I was ready to go in. And that was even an appetizer. That was like a appetizer that's really feeling like a main course, but there's more.
Right.
So I would need y'all to come back and just listen, because my appetite is wet and ready. And I am Dr. T, the hand behind the handle of Healthy Bump Club right here on YouTube and on Fanbase. Why? Because we support our own, as well as Healthy Bump Club on Instagram. We thank you guys for joining us, and make sure you click the link above. We're gonna tag you to the other conversation we had with Dr. Opong, so you can make sure you get all his words of wisdom. We thank you guys for watching and for supporting us, and we hope to see y'all in the next episode. Ew. This is Dr. T, just a friendly reminder. Don't forget to comment, like, and share. And go ahead, why not? Click that subscribe button. Help us to get to the next 1,000 subscribers. We thank you guys for supporting.